So they'll be out of school for a week probably.
Ready? Just let me know whenever you're ready. Locking the door. You can't move. Good evening. I'm calling to order the January 2026 meeting of the Southborough Select Board. First item on the agenda is public comment, and this is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to an item that's not on the posted agenda. We try to keep public comment to 3 minutes, not intended as a back and forth, but just an opportunity for members of the public to offer public comment.
Hi, Mary Tinty, 2 General Henry Knox Road. I have a quick question that is a back and forth. Andrew, do you know if public comment will be allowed in the portion of the meeting that is going to be discussing the NERI building?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. So I will do a quick public comment now in advance of that, which is just that I saw Mr. Hamilton's article in my Southborough today, and I have some concerns that I wanted to relay in advance of that larger public discussion later, which have to do with numbers. There have been several meetings that I have attended between the select board, the pre-K through 8 new building committee, advisory, and the school committees. And at each of those meetings, especially the ones in December, as we circle on NERI, there have been pleas from parents and citizens and members of Southborough to not throw out dollar amounts that are unsubstantiated and unsupported, that are a matter of opinion rather than fact. Because as we all try and move forward together on this project, it is important that we are all working with the same set of fact-based numbers that have been researched and vetted. This is part of the problem that led to confusion around the previous vote, and we are trying to avoid such confusion in the future. So I would encourage Mr. Hamilton and the entire select board to be very careful moving forward with throwing out numbers like 40 million that I heard, or 15 million most recently. The public needs to work with numbers that are fact-based and that are based on research, evidence that can be returned to time and time again. That's what the feasibility studies are hoping to relay in the future. And so I just wanted to make that very clear at how disheartened I was in seeing that. Number 2, I just want to say that I firmly believe as we move forward that discussions that are involving any NERI proposals or new plans need to happen especially carefully when members of the school committee are not here to be part of the discussion. So if conversations are going to be relayed, or if new proposals or ideas are going to be brought forward, there won't be an opportunity for rebuttal or a framing in the moment of a discussion. And as we get closer to the vote in March, and as we get closer to what will hopefully be a consensus solution for the town, I think it's really important that we're all working with the same set of information, and the school committee is a big part of that. Thank you.
Yes, Kristen?
Thanks, Andrew. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, Kristen Laval, 12 Southwood Drive. This is just a request stemming from a discussion I was part of on like a Facebook chat with some other town members this week. Could we, if something's not planned, could we ask the select board in partnership with police department and the fire department put on a future agenda Southborough's kind of ICE response strategy? Obviously, I don't need to go into details. We can understand what's driving this question and this concern. And so, yeah, I'm sure conversations have taken place, but if we could, set something up for the community to ask questions, we would appreciate that. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? No. Okay. So the first item on the agenda is an update on the Affordable Housing Trust from its chair, Doug Mance. And Doug has a presentation, which is up on the board here. And just the background to this is some people know the new Affordable Housing Trust, the successor to Shopsy, is what, maybe a year or 18 months old. So we thought this would be a good time to just check in and see how the trust is doing.
Excellent. Good evening, everyone. My name is Doug Manns, Chair of the Affordable Housing Trust, 3 Killam Farm Lane in Southborough. I don't know, do we have, trying to see if there's any other members of the trust online, just to make sure there's not a quorum. I don't know if we can see the attendees briefly.
Well, as long as you're not deliberating.
Okay, all right, well, that's fine. We'll keep going then. So anyways, great. So again, just as Andrew stated, again, you know, we are a newly formed trust, right, or reconstituted trust, right? So about, I think it was 2 town meetings ago that town meeting passed and changed the membership. So now we are 5 members, staggered terms. And again, you know, the principal mission is up on the slides in terms of really trying to, you know, expand the ability of affordable housing, permanently affordable housing in the town of Southborough. So we do have 5 full members, but we can go to the next slide. So again, one of the key things we did this past year, remember, we did the update of the housing production plan. It's a 5-year plan. I think we were before you actually as a board back in July. So thank you guys for helping us through that and supporting that. And it really kind of laid out a number of kind of key goals for us. And so I won't necessarily go through all of them, but again, it's just to give you a sense of this is what we've been really focusing on. So again, first and foremost is to create and support affordable housing in Southborough. That's kind of a key item. One of the key things also is, when we talk about affordable housing and numbers and scale consistent with the character and scale of the town of Southborough, right? And so thinking about that really carefully. We definitely want to maintain continued progress for the 10% affordable housing requirement that we have in terms of being in safe harbor for Chapter 40B. I mean, that's a minimum goal. We obviously, as a committee or a trust, want to do more than that, but that's just something that we're really mindful of. One of the key items that came out of the housing production plan was to lift the cap on the number of 55+ senior housing units. So in our zoning code, there is a cap. I think it's 7% of the units. And we've hit that pretty quickly. So there has been much 55+ housing. And from our perspective, not just affordable housing is important, also diversity of housing types, right? And so that's been a really important element of it. We've been actually working with the planning board in earnest. Ellen Myra particularly has been working with the planning board from our committee in terms of introducing a warrant article for the spring town meeting. And so we're really excited about that, but that was one of the key things. One of the other things too, at last town meeting, if you might recall, is that the CPC had almost $500,000 worth of funds that were formally transferred to the Affordable Housing Trust. And that was done last year, which was great. And then partly, it was in order for the trust to actually be competitive in the real estate market, we need to be able to move fast, right? And so this past year, we've actually been pretty active looking at potentially purchase of single-family homes. And again, the trust is not just looking to buy one single-family home. I mean, we want to do more than that per se, but we have been approached by at least 2 or 3 residents in town, elderly residents that were actually willing to potentially sell their home to the trust or the town in order to keeping it affordable in perpetuity. Never quite aligned on those to date, to be honest. It's been more challenging than we thought with the homeowners. But again, it just gives you a sense that the word is out, that the trust does have funds and people do want opportunities for more affordable. We've also been talking about potential partnerships with nonprofit developers to potentially pursue larger projects. And when I say larger projects, that's more like 20 to 40 units, right? So again, trying to keep in character with the scale of the town. And the other thing, which will come up pretty infrequently, this came probably a couple of years ago, obviously, if 61A parcels come up, the ones that are protected by the covenants from the town, is there an opportunity there for the Affordable Housing Trust, even potentially with Open Space Committee too as well. So just, again, these were kind of goals that were kind of set out, but we can go to the next slide. So here was kind of the key achievements or activities of last year. So first and foremost was the preparation, submission, and approval of the housing production plan. Again, Ellen was a key factor in this. Between the two, the composition of the board changing, we didn't actually have a lot of time, and we actually got it done over 6 months, which was great. But it sets out goals over the next 5 years. And so I think you guys all have a copy of it. But again, that was a key thing. The other was the approval of the town meeting warrant article to transfer CPC funds to the Affordable Housing Trust. Again, that was great, supported by town meeting. We really appreciate it. And then kind of getting into the weeds, again, we were engaged by 3 residents for the potential purchase of their homes. A couple of them were just too small, to be honest. And again, the goal would be is if we pick up a home, we'd love to be able to do at least an ADU with it or something more. I mean, our goal is not to spend $700,000 or $800,000 and just get one affordable unit. We want to try to get more for the funds that we have in place. And so anyways, those didn't quite work out, but again, we'll talk to any resident that does have a home and wants to think about transferring it. Another one got complicated where the resident wanted to stay for a very long period of time, even though they transferred it, which just didn't really logistically work out. So separately, we did bid on several parcels of single-family homes that came to market. I would probably have 3 we actively bid on. If we did not have the funds, I would tell you we'd not be able to even have these discussions, which is good. I will tell you the market has outbid us, no question. Expectations, just the market is still very hot for single-family homes. We also found some ones that were almost like under construction, didn't quite work out, and it would be too much of a burden to take on. Or again, the lots were just awkward and wouldn't even allow an ADU. But again, it's been a great, kind of exploration for us to just know what we're kind of looking for. We did also apply to MHP for their technical assistance program. Unfortunately, we just heard back that we did not get it. But we are looking for state funds or state affiliated agencies to see if there's any help for the Affordable Housing Trust. So one other item we did submit another application to CPC for this year. And the idea was, again, last year we left $100,000 of funds with CPC in case another member of the public came up with an affordable housing idea. Now, again, mind you, they can come to us directly too as well, but we did leave 100 in. But the idea is that this year we went back and said, just whatever is over the 100, if you could transfer it to us, because we have definitely found that these projects are going to be more expensive than we envisioned. So that'll be in front of town meeting for this spring. And so we've been to several meetings with them already.
So they agreed.
I don't think they've taken a formal vote, but we definitely have some robust discussion on it, right? Again, I think there's a lot of discussion. We haven't yet done anything with the original amount, so we're still working through it. But again, it meets the tenor of the previous request. And so I generally feel it's favorable at this point. But I don't think they have formally taken a vote on it, but they will be in the future. But we did meet with them several times. They had a lot of questions, and I believe we answered all the questions that they had on this. We also had a lot of robust discussion around types of affordable housing. And, again, whether it's single-family homes with an ADU, whether it's townhomes, again, I do think the committee is focused a lot on 55-plus affordable housing too as well. It's another item that we think is important for us. And so, again, just trying to think around the ways of, because we are going to get, we have some new affordable housing through the Chapter 40B projects that have already happened, and those are not age restricted. And so is there an opportunity there with more for 55-plus kind of, townhomes or other types of different, uses. So it just, again, gives you a sense of it. We do meet at least once a month. Our meetings are open to the public, very lightly attended, just to be honest. And we have met sometimes 3 or 4 in a month when, something comes on the market that we're competing for. And so we go through a flurry of really a lot of activity, and then we go back to once a month, just depending on what's happening. And then we did welcome a new committee member, David Joyner, who's great. He actually works for Bank of America and is in the affordable housing finance space. And so great addition. He just was at our first meeting last week. Again, we did a lot last year, especially with the housing production plan, another warrant article. And so I think this year, again, we're just, we're looking for opportunities. We'll probably talk to a few nonprofit or affordable housing developers this year. We actually met with Habitat for Humanity as well last year. So, been pretty busy, but we have yet to really find the right opportunity yet, to transact on at this point. So I think that's really the quick update. I don't know if I have another slide I'm going to ask. I mean, is that it? I think that's it, right?
Yeah, just the 4.
Yep. Okay, great. Happy to answer any questions.
Al, I know you're on the committee, right? So,
Yeah, I don't have any questions because I go to almost every meeting.
all right. Any comments, thoughts, reflections?
We got off to a good start and, hopefully we're going to close on something in the next 6 months. We have there are a couple of opportunities that are rising up, and I continue to scour the woodwork for opportunities.
All right, Tim?
I have no questions at this time. Thank you.
So thank you, Doug. That was great. And it is so heartening to know the backgrounds and abilities of the five of you. I mean, it's what a great group this is to do what you're trying to do. And I know it's hard. Do you want the select board to write a letter to CPC, encouraging them to transfer over the excess money?
That would be great. It'd be wonderful if we'd have your support. Again, I think the one thing we have found is that, I mean, just transacting on something will be expensive, but also have funds to renovate, right? Or to do an ADU. And, or again, if we team up with a nonprofit, like if something else comes up, they would need funds per unit type of thing. So I think, again, we love to leave the 100. We're not asking for more than the 100. We always agreed to leave, but it'd be great to have the additional funds just to continue to transfer over.
Andrew, you agree?
Mhm.
So
Again, the number we're talking about is,
the amount that's gone into the housing bucket for CPC, everything above 100 is what we're asking to be transferred over with the warrant article on April 11th.
I don't think the number's been finalized, but I think it's somewhere around, just around 50,000 or somewhere in just over 50,000.
okay.
Because they keep their 100. So the warrant article for April 11th to raise the cap on the 55 and over, it looks like it's going to be ready.
I believe it is. I know that, we didn't try to force it last fall, right? Because it wasn't quite ready, but my understanding is I've seen several drafts. I would hope it would be ready by then. That's my expectation. But I think the planning board might be a little bit closer to it, but to date, I think it's on path at least.
Because there actually is some realistic interest in doing that. So we should definitely try to get that done April 11th.
Yep. No, correct. And I think we talked about it at our last board meeting. I think the comments that we had back from the trust was just on the amount of affordability. I think originally it was 12.5%. I think most recently we've raised to 15% in the draft. Some of us have concerns of, if you raise it too high, you won't get anything. And so I think that was one of our comments back to the planning board. I think no real comments on density. I think it was 6 units per acre, which felt like a really great density. Trying to remember, Al, I can't remember the other comments that we had, but.
Is it 15 now or 12 and a half? Have they settled on?
So I don't know if it's been settled yet. I think originally it was going to start at 12.5% like the other recent, like the downtown district, the other recent zoning districts that were passed. When the draft came back, I think it got raised to 15% from the planning board. I think our comment back was it should go back to 12.5%. Again, just our concern is I've been worked in some towns where it's almost 20% and nothing's happening, right? And so we definitely want to be above 10, no matter what, but 12.5% sounded consistent and still a great opportunity. I'm just concerned about if it's raised too much. That, at least my personal opinion, I think some of the board members shared that, but that was our general consensus.
Yeah,
of the comments
it was
that-
unanimous that,
Yeah.
you don't want to kill the golden goose.
And you think the planning board has listened to your advice?
Well, I think that advice, that recommendation just went back. I haven't talked to
Yeah.
Ellen. I haven't heard anything yet back yet.
I don't believe they've met yet on that subject.
Okay, all right.
I had a question. At 7%, roughly how many over 55 units is that? Sorry.
It was like a couple hundred.
I would
want-
say 200 or so.
Yeah, it wasn't.
It'd
it
be
wasn't
roughly
close-
210, 7%, they're about
7 times
3,000, there are
210.
3,000 housing units in the town of Southborough, so 7% would be 210.
It was a pretty low number overall, I would say, for the town of Southborough.
Right, so if you raised it to 12,
They're talking about no, not 12. That's not what he's talking about.
That was the.
Taking the
affordability.
cap off completely. And then 12.5% would have to be affordable within the development. So you're raising the cap, just get rid of 7%. And then as part of it, though, you have to at least have 12.5% be affordable. So they would be 55 and over, and then within that 12.5%.
so you'd have 55 and over and affordable, or the over?
Yeah,
that?
so again, the idea would be is that, so there would be no cap anymore, right?
Right.
And no reason for the cap, to be honest, just another housing type, right? And then the affordable would have to be at least 12.5% on that as well. And then, so that would keep with 10%, just safe harbor, which was important. But, the extra 2.5%, I think from our perspective is just good. So, and it's consistent with the other zoning districts previously passed by town meetings,
And
so.
why is that difficult? Why is it difficult to have it at 15?
It's just more affordable that you require, right? It's a big drag on the project.
People
right?
don't want to do it.
Well, no,
Yeah.
the developer's gonna make
economics.
money on this, and they're not gonna do it. So they do their math, and then when they, the more and more they can
Yes.
do affordable, the
Understood.
less profitable. So they've got to, they're gonna, either make their money or they're not gonna do it.
All right, so that's a different thing than I was thinking. But I was just wondering, proportionally, if we had more over 55 in town, what would that look like?
So again, I think it probably would come in two forms, right? So again, we've had some of the, more townhome developments, right? Or we would say townhome, what do you, cottage developments,
Yeah.
right? So maybe, yeah, it's 2 stories, but the main living areas where all the, master bedroom is, living and dining, right? So I definitely think that's a product, every time it gets built, it's sold out almost immediately type of thing. It could be in the form of small buildings too as well, right? Multi-story, like 2 or 3 story building, apartment flats type of thing. I think it's really up to the developers, right? To figure out what they want. But my sense would be, it'd be, smaller units compared to single family homes, right? So people would have the option of still being in Southborough, having a 2 or 3 bedroom, type place. And again, every time I've seen a new one open up, there's a couple of them we all know in town, like as soon as
It's
they're
gone
sold,
like that.
they're gone in a second.
Think about how William Onthek looks. That's, it's
Yeah.
clustered, but they're cute
Yeah.
and very
So-
popular.
And I was at the post office today and I heard 2 ladies talking and one of them said to the other, make sure you get a unit on the first floor.
Yep.
So what about the people on the second?
Well, so again, I think we've seen 2, the cottages are all ground floor type units with, like a guest room above it, on the second floor. Again, I think if it's a senior housing 55 plus developer, it'd be an elevated building, right? So they would, maybe have access to each of the floors. So again, our perspective is just to remove the barriers to entry for the market, right? And let the developers decide. I do think likely it would be more townhome style or cottage style, because I think that's what's worked so well in Southborough. But beyond that, again, can't really guess as to what developers want to do beyond that, but I think that's what they'd be looking for most likely is the cottage or townhome style.
There's a substantial economic benefit to creating an environment where seniors can stay in the community because seniors consume far fewer services than they pay in taxes. And so, our choice is really, if somebody just, I live in a 4-bedroom house. When I decide to downsize, we know who's going to move into my house. It's somebody with kids. And you'd like to keep me in the town. Well, some people would like to keep me in the town. So that in a smaller place, so that, my taxes, I'm pretty light consumer of government services. But so it's in our financial interest to give seniors in our community a place to move to when they decide to downsize.
And the reason, the cap makes no sense in today's demographic. The population is just skewing older and older. So to have that cap is truly inappropriate at this point. But Al's right. Seniors are profitable and, families with kids in school are not quite as profitable.
Ellen Maria has her hand up.
Oh, great.
here. Should we, Ellen, do
please.
you want to come over?
We should probably,
Right,
if we're
call
going to
the meeting
talk,
to
we
order,
should
yeah.
call the meeting to order.
Oh,
So I'll call the meeting of the Board of the Affordable Housing Trust to order at 6:53.
good point.
Hi, everybody. Sorry for joining late. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Doug, for presenting. Just wanted to add a couple of details on the 55 plus bylaw. So we have been working really closely with the planning board and the town planner. And so the plan is that it will be the planning board will be opening public hearings at their next meeting in order to have it on the April town meeting warrant. So that is moving forward. And just on the numbers side, what we put together for the housing production plan, the 7% cap comes out to 213 homes that we are allowed to build under the current bylaw for 55 plus. We currently have 208. So we really are coming up right up against this cap. So that's why it was kind of one of the things the trust has been focusing on to be able to remove that.
Is there an affordability requirement in the current bylaw?
No,
Okay.
not that I'm aware of, right, Ellen? I don't believe there is any affordability requirement in the current bylaw.
No, there's very, very vague language about wanting to encourage nonprofit and community groups, but there's nothing specific beyond that. So that's really when we initially looked at this, we were thinking about just kind of removing the cap, and the deeper we got into the bylaw, the more we realized we wanted to kind of overhaul it completely to not just remove the cap, but really get in this true affordability language and just make it a much cleaner and hopefully productive bylaw.
Ellen, do you know what the rationale was behind putting in a 7% cap in the first place? Or is it just?
I don't. So what we could trace back, this was from, I believe, the early 90s when this was put in place. And, you know, the best we can tell, just kind of a desire to slow development overall. But again, I don't know from, you know, direct experience or from anyone who was kind of involved in putting this in place in the first place.
Thank you.
Yeah, we definitely at the trust believe this will definitely lead to new 55+ development. It'll lead to new affordability in that development on site, which is great. And to Al's comment too, it actually will free up some single family homes, which also the other crisis we have is that there's not enough single family homes right now, and that, you know, those prices have gone really high. So from our perspective, it's a series of wins, and it's market driven after that. And it keeps us not only on track with the 10% overall for Safe Harbor, it actually exceeds it at 12.5%. So, you know, this is why this was a key item for us in the housing production plan. So we're very excited. So we hope the select board supports it as it goes through.
All right, I just have a couple of questions for you before I remember some time ago, Al mentioned that one of the things that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund can do is rental assistance. I don't know if that's something you've considered, and I just mention it because, you know, it's so challenging to successfully bid on specific properties or to work out a partnership for a development that has the trust considered simply just basically giving money to entities if in exchange they will make properties more affordable, or just direct rental assistance.
I think so. I mean, that was one of the things that was listed a while ago. We haven't talked much about direct rental assistant to tenants per se. We are exploring the concept. We're trying to figure out, like, again, so some of the MBTA Communities Act requires 10% affordable, right off the bat. Maybe to talk to, if anyone actually moves forward, to talk to one of the developers to say, if you had, I don't know, I'm making up 150,000 or 200,000 from the trust, would you make another unit affordable, right? Permanently affordable.
Yeah.
And we don't know yet what that, that break point is, right? We have found that, look, it could cost us easily $500,000 to create an affordable unit if we were just doing it straight out, right? That's really expensive, right? And we only have about $1 million, right? So our goal is not just to end up with 2 affordable units, right? And so I think the idea is, again, we're exploring, what would it take for a for-profit developer to take another unit and make it affordable, right? They're already, because they still get revenue from that affordable unit, it's just much lower. That's also, we want to talk to nonprofit, developers too, because we've heard, remember, nonprofit developers have access to state and federal tax credits if they do an affordable housing deal. So if they get a donation of land, they may only need 20 or 30,000 per unit additional to make, an affordable housing project in a town. And so those are the 2 areas that we're really trying to explore this year. And David Joyner has that experience too, as well, as part of the committee, just to see, like, because again, the end of the goal is like, how cost effectively can we get an additional affordable units, right? That's really the goal, right? And I don't think we know yet the answer to that. We have found out that it's really expensive just to buy a single family home and make it affordable, and that's not the goal. So
I have.
Just to add to that, in the previous version of the Affordable Housing Trust, we did approach one developer with that sort of a proposition. That project hasn't gone through, but we've run the numbers and have at least some reasonable idea of how much it would take to bring a rate from market rate to 80% of a market rate or 60% of a market rate. It's bigger than a bread box.
yeah.
Apropos of that, it's almost $1 million in the trust at this point, right?
Correct.
Is it sitting anywhere that it's generating enough money that you could use whatever it's generating as rental assistance for people?
I don't know if you know, it's in a town account. It's in
Yeah,
a,
it's invested. It's
in
an
a town
investment
account.
program.
It
We-
receives interest.
It's no more than interest. It's actually invested. It's got a, asset allocation. So it's earning money.
so, again, I think, we'll take the interest all day long, right, to help build it up, but I think it's still pretty nominal in the scheme of what, it takes, right?
The town accounts.
Yeah.
So the
So-
one distinction is that because most of the funds come from the CPA, there is an additional layer of requirements. And my understanding is the interest on that account is not subject to the CPA layer of requirements, which allows us to do
That's
a few
correct.
other things.
Right. That's what you've got to.
Does it have to
use
remain?
unfettered.
So
Does
So
it
that's
have to
right.
remain
Oh,
in
okay,
the town
so-
account?
Bonnie's been here for some time. I guess.
Sorry,
But let me just answer, Marguerite, it's invested. We've got trust funds, we've got that, we've got a pool of money that is invested. We've got an outside investment advisor, so it's all invested together. So it's
Yeah,
not,
I dealt with some of those with the library.
yeah, so it's not sitting in a bank account doing nothing.
All right, Bonnie?
As a former member of the housing, affordable housing, on Wildwood and Wedgewood, that was slated to be 272 units. We worked with the developer probably for 5 years, the neighborhood. He was willing to cut out a portion for senior housing. So that he separated it on his own. It does have a sewer treatment plant. I was just wondering if you approach a developer with that in mind and get an affordable unit separated so that you manage it.
Yeah, so, well, again, it's actually a good comment. So I think first is to get the 55+ housing bylaw passed, right? Because we do think that's going to attract developers, right? No question. So what you just brought up is something that's been talked about in Boston and a few other areas where 12.5% is still a pretty high limit, right, per se, but if you were to break it out into 2 projects, right, you may actually get more than 12.5% if you team up with a nonprofit developer, right? So
Right.
not necessarily, I don't think the trust is looking to necessarily manage anything directly, but there are nonprofits that do this day in and day out throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So there is the possibility of saying, rather than having the developer do it, right, they actually give land, give money, and a nonprofit can actually do the 12.5%, or may even end up more than the equivalent of the 12.5% units, right? So I think that probably works with bigger
No,
projects.
I didn't want to go that far, but
Yeah.
I would suggest you try
Yeah.
that. And the other thing, we used Assabet on the Pocketville Road home when we purchased that, when the town purchased it and turned it over to the Housing Trust. Assabet redid that home for us.
Great. Yeah, I think, again, this year, we're definitely going to be exploring many options, and also, again, really looking at state funds too as well. One, maybe just to get some help for us, just as a trust, right? We don't have any staff support, right, type of thing. But we're energetic and we're excited for the coming year. So, and we feel like we at least now have some tools that we can really work with.
All right, thank you very much.
Great, thank you, appreciate it.
Oh, adjourn your meeting?
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn the Affordable Housing Trust.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, Al,
Aye.
Ellen,
Aye.
and Doug is aye. Thank you.
Thank you
Mr.
very
Chairman.
much. And
Thank
thanks
you.
for all your work on the Affordable Housing Trust.
Thank you.
Okay, I just have a brief chair's report. I am the select board representative on the Tricentennial Committee, and just 2 updates. So we're meeting tomorrow, and I anticipate we're probably going to make some progress on organizing a drone show, which is like a different version of, more high-tech version of a fireworks display for January 1st, 2027. In one of the recent meetings, the committee thought it was a good idea to kind of begin the year with that event. So just stay tuned. We need some approvals from the committee, but I think we're going to consider them tomorrow. And then also, the committee also is interested in putting up banners on the utility poles in town to celebrate the Tricentennial. And that there's actually a town bylaw that restricts these banners. So it's been requested that we have an amendment to the bylaw and that we do so at the annual town meeting. I think that makes sense. Although I've been talking about the details of this with Mark, and he has explained based on his discussions with National Grid representatives that the poles are actually, they're jointly owned by Verizon and National Grid, and you need to make, you want to get their consent to actually put up these banners. So we're going to try to make progress on doing that in conjunction with having a warrant article at the annual town meeting about these banners. That's all I've got. Does anyone have any members' reports? Or?
Can I append to your tricentennial report
Yep.
as the treasurer of the 501c3 that supports the committee?
Mhm.
So just to update everyone, we've raised $130,000 currently. Most of it's in the bank. That doesn't include the 30,000 that the town appropriated a couple of years ago. So I'm not including that in the 130. I actually hope we don't spend it, to be perfectly frank, put it back in our coffers. We've got lots of, we've made requests to several what we consider big corporate donors. We're waiting to hear back from those. So we're still optimistic we're going to raise the funds needed to put on a great year. You know, I can't believe how close it's come. We've talked about this for so long. You know, it just seemed like it was so far away. It's less than a year now. My gosh.
This has also reminded me, there's one other comment I wanted to make that was at the end of Doug's presentation. So before this meeting, Karina stopped by and just gave me the heads up that planning board is working on some zoning amendments for the annual town meeting. So I encouraged her to, you know, if there's a time where, after we get past this special town meeting in March, if they want to come and present on these. And she had mentioned the lifting the affordable housing cap and also this banner bylaw.
Yeah, I have two reports.
Sure.
I've been working with a group of town employees on the agenda scheduling app, and we're making slow but steady progress. The first step towards implementing that is to have an automated room reservation system, which is typically done in almost every company through Outlook, and we would do it through Outlook. We're only focusing right now on the three most popular meeting rooms, which is this room, the public safety room, and the seniors and the meeting areas in the senior center. And I've sent notes off to the various organizations that supervise those rooms. But I think this is something that we need to do to move forward. The second item I have is I met with Matt Probst about the municipal technology survey, business process survey that's going out to that's gone out to the town and also to town employees. To date, there have only been 8 town employee responses, which is a bit disappointing. And I have encouraged the town administrator to remind folks that this survey has the unanimous support of this board.
All right, thank you. Mark, do you have anything? No, I'm all set. Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda. Do we have any holds on the consent agenda?
I'd like to hold B.
Okay, are there any other holds? All right, I move that the board approve consent agenda items A, C, D, and E.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, Tim?
Yeah, I just know that Jay's here, and he's been doing a lot of good work on this recommendation. So I just wanted to thank him for all the effort on this. I've asked him a couple changes along the way. I know Matt Probst has as well. And I think that we're in a pretty good spot now with everything that has been done here. And I think that it'll be a really good upgrade for this room when all complete.
All right, that's wonderful to hear.
It is.
So do you want to make a
Some
motion?
things take time sometimes.
Yes. I'd like to approve the IT director recommendation for a new AV system for the McAuliffe room.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you, Jay. Really appreciate it. Okay. So turning to other matters, the next item on the agenda is DEP letter regarding additional sampling risk assessment for Parkerville Road landfill. Could you bring over Bill Cundiff? So I'm just going to turn this over to our DPW Superintendent, Bill, to explain the latest developments here. And for those that have looked at the packet for this meeting, there's two important documents. There's a copy of the letter that DPW received from the DEP earlier this month, and a memo. It's a single-space memo that's about 4 pages long from Tim Tees, who's our water consultant, that provides some analysis, and then it also has some important attachments, including some site plans and charts that are important. So, Bill, I'll let you take it from here.
Sure thing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bill Cundiff, DPW Superintendent. I'm going to share my screen if
You
that's
increase the
okay.
We're having, you're a little bit soft, at least in this room. So,
Might be his mic near his mouth.
Nope, that's better.
okay, you maybe turn it down a little bit.
Is
That was a little too much.
that better?
Perfect.
Yes.
That's
Okay.
That's strong, but that's okay.
Okay. All right. Hold on a second. Bear with me, please. Okay. Share. Okay, can you see my screen?
No.
Oh, I gotta hit share. There we go. All right, so on January 7th, we received an email from the DEP, basically indicating that we had some exceedances, which we did identify in our quarterly and annual groundwater monitoring. Our annual groundwater monitoring program. And those exceedances occurred at 2 locations at the landfill. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, but the blue dots around the landfill are monitor wells. We have 3 groupings. This grouping is MW2, this grouping is MW3, and this grouping down here is MW4. For orientation purposes, Parkerville Road is down here along the bottom of the plan. This is the entrance road to the Neary School. This is the soccer field that is located west of the landfill. So we performed our annual water quality monitoring as we do at all these well locations. And we've been, for at least the past 10 years, been getting detection at MW3 groundwater wells, both the shallow well and the deep well. The exceedance is for a compound called 1,4-dioxane, and that compound has a 0.3 milligrams per liter threshold, which is parts per billion measuring parameter. And this round we detected in the shallow well 0.9 parts per billion, and in the deep well 0.5 parts per billion. So as a result of that, along with a second exceedance that we detected down here along Parkerville Road at MW4, we had an arsenic exceedance of 0.017 parts per billion. Our arsenic's threshold is 0.01 parts per billion. The DEP basically had a number of things that they wanted to do as a result of the exceedances. This is not a situation that is a cause for a health emergency. It's a situation where the DEP is asking for additional information. So they acknowledged the exceedance. They contacted us, and we have a handful of things to identify to them within the next 60 days. The first is classifying the groundwater. They have categories of GW1, GW2, or GW3. So PAR is in the process of responding to each of these things. The second thing they wanted to know is, are there any down gradient public water supply areas or zones that contribute to a public water supply? They wanted to know where the closest private wells are located. They wanted us to do a risk assessment, and they also wanted us to indicate whether there's any public water supplies within a half a mile of those well locations. So PAR has promptly gone out to the site. They've already collected groundwater samples, as well as samples from 2 nearby private drinking water wells. They're in the process of getting the analytical results for that. And once they get that analytical, they'll do their assessment and they'll respond to the DEP with the results. So that's really an overview and a summary of what's going on. Just to give you a little background on the site itself. Again, looking at the map, we have the landfill site. Back in 1995, when the site was being looked at for capping, there was a hydrogeologic study, and that study indicated that groundwater flows from the southeast to the northwest. There's a pond over here that used to be a skating rink, I guess. So it would stand to reason that something from the landfill may show up in these wells, because that's the general direction that groundwater is flowing. The public water supply line comes up Parkerville to the south, to the east side of the landfill, goes into the Neary driveway and services the public school. So there's not a threat there. This first residence at the intersection here is also serviced by public water. There's 2 additional nearby residences that are on private wells. We've, as part of this sampling round and as part of the risk assessment, we have collected a sample at those wells, and we're running analytical on those. That's really it in a nutshell. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Bill, can you explain in the map you've got, what are the yellow dots on the map?
The yellow dots are what we call soil probes, soil gas probes. Basically, these are a number of locations that were installed when the landfill was capped in the year 2000 or thereabouts. And those locations have dwindled through time. Now we have, I believe, 4 locations. We're in the process of contracting to have an additional 4 installed around the site. So we should get better data on that.
All right, and can you explain, is there monitoring of gases on the site?
The solid waste regulations require that gases be monitored around the perimeter of all landfills at the property boundary. And that's why they are run along the perimeter, because this is actually a separate parcel of land. And they're right at the property boundary. There's certain thresholds they have to monitor for. One of them is a 25%, what's called an LEL, lower explosive limit. We're talking about methane gas here. And so that's the primary parameter that we sample the gas for, is the LEL. And as long as that's below 25%, it's compliant with the regulatory requirements. To my knowledge, we've never exceeded the 25% LEL.
Right. Who would like to start if someone has questions for Bill? Al?
So first, I want to commend you and Pear for quickly responding. I know this was, I think that's commendable to have gotten on top of this quickly and communicating that to the public. I did reach out to a good friend of mine who's an environmental lawyer who has a lot of experience in this area. And the one thing he told me is there are hundreds of these sites throughout the Commonwealth. This is not an unusual thing. It may not be good, but it's not like we are the only town in this Commonwealth that has a landfill that's been capped. And, we do have to monitor it. He did tell me, over time, caps can fail. So, we're going to be keeping an eye on this for longer than any of us are going to be around.
Kathy?
Hey, Bill, I agree with Al too. You guys have done, I mean, this memo is well written. If it's true that the readings with 2 of the 3 well groups are consistent year over year, consistently above, but consistent from year over year, why is the DEP reaching out now versus 5 years ago?
Well, that's a good point, and I didn't elaborate on that earlier, Kathy. The results have been at this threshold for probably the past 10 years. I'm going to share my screen again just to show you. All right. So this chart here that you can see on the screen is 1,4-dioxane. That's one of the exceedances that we've detected at the grouping of MW3, shallow and deep. And since 2015, we've had this minor level of exceedance over the threshold, which is the 0.3 micrograms per liter parts per billion, with these orange and blue dots. The orange dots represent the deep well sample results, and the blue dots represent the shallow sample results. So we've been very consistent with the levels over time. In fact, they look like they're going down slightly. So that's for the 1,4-dioxane. The second is the arsenic. And likewise, this is at a variety of well locations around the perimeter of the site. The blue is MW2, the orange is MW3, and the pink is MW4. So we're just hovering around that threshold level. I do want to point out that arsenic is a naturally occurring compound, and there is an arsenic belt that comes all the way from Maine all the way down to the Virginias. So it's not uncommon that you see exceedances, particularly when there's high iron levels too.
Okay, so why do you think we heard from them this year and not 2020?
I did have a conversation with Jim McQuaid, and someone did contact the DEP inquiring about, the status of the monitoring.
So you think that's what triggered the letter, probably?
I do.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a really stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. The cap that's on the landfill. To me, it sounds like a cap like you put on your head, like a bathing suit cap. It's on the top, right? It doesn't encapsulate the whole thing. It's over the top and maybe comes down the sides. So it's really trying to keep something from coming up versus something going down.
That's correct. So the idea is it's like an umbrella. You're correct. The idea is you keep water out of the landfill and percolating through the waste and carrying particulate with the water that percolates through. It's like your coffee filter. So as long as you have that cover intact over the landfill, in theory, you shouldn't have an issue.
All right, that makes sense. My last question is the yellow dots again. Can you go back to that one? I thought I understood what you said, but then Andrew's follow-up question didn't make sense to me. So are the yellow dots the gas monitors?
The yellow dots are the soil probe locations that have been established since the cap was closed in the year 2000 or thereabouts.
Okay, but where is the actual methane gas being monitored?
Okay, I'm not sure if you can see it on the plan, but for example, can you see my cursor? There's SP8A here. There's a series of them located along the driveway. There's a series of them located on Parkerville Road. A number of
I thought
them.
you said those were the soil monitors.
The soil probe, excuse me if I didn't explain that clearly. Soil probes are gas points. Okay, so it's basically a plastic tube that goes into the ground a certain distance, not very deep, above the groundwater, so that you can get the ambient gas levels. And it's just a probe that goes into the ground that allows you to sample the below grade air, if you will.
So some of those have gotten covered up, filled up, and so we're in the process of putting some new.
Correct. Yeah, literally, they're a little plastic tube that sticks out. We're gonna actually, with the new ones we put in, we're gonna put a nice concrete pad and a little cover on it so it's easily found.
Okay. That's it for me.
Marguerite?
I had just one question. Bill, the pairs of wells, 1, 2, and 3, the deep well goes down 24 feet, correct?
Thereabouts, correct.
And how deep is?
Actually, some of them may go down as deep as 40 feet, I believe.
Okay.
The shallow ones might be between anywhere from 10 to 25 feet, I would guess. Usually you want to get that top shallow well to straddle the groundwater surface elevation, and then the deep one to get a little more representative of a deep sample.
All the way down to 40 feet.
Yeah.
That's, somehow I find that reassuring. I don't know. Is there any concern about the reservoir?
We do have samples that we collect that are what we call down gradient of the landfill. So surface water and groundwater generally flow in the same direction, and we expect that they're flowing to a stream that's just to the northwest of the landfill. That stream does make its way to the Sudbury Reservoir, some distance. We do collect a sample just on the other edge of that parking area, and we collect one further down where the stream crosses Parkerville Road to enter the Sudbury Reservoir. So we've been monitoring those, and we've had no indication of exceedances at those locations.
Thank you. That's all.
All right, before we open up to comment and see if anyone else in the public has any questions, I just want to emphasize, if people are interested in this, I really encourage you to read this memo that Tim Tees and Par put together. It's on the more kind of scientific side, but I know I've learned way more about this topic in the last 3 weeks than I did beforehand, and I found it very educational. So with that, yep, Bob. Yep.
Bob Meyer 12 Parkerville. Bill, when the issue came up with the Neary school alternative, what's the longevity of the cap? Was the cap need to be replaced at some time in the relatively near future?
I've never heard of an issue where a cap needs to be replaced. We do need to repair it on occasion. Sometimes we get animals that bore into the cap, create little holes. So we do survey the cap annually, and we fill those holes in, and every year we come up with a list of to-do things that we need to do. So the goal is to make sure that we maintain the integrity of the existing cap so we don't have to do anything significant to it.
And you can do that with confidence, you feel?
Yes. It's not uncommon that this type of thing happens throughout the state.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're doing all this work, working with the state on that. I'm just curious, I was on the Charter Building Committee back in the late 90s. we wrestled with John Bolin about, we're building the sidewalk on the east side of Parkerville Road. We had it all torn up and we couldn't get it done. What's the expense if we wanted to complete the main from Main Street to Neary for all the residents that are on Wells? Huge expense, any idea? Not that we need to do that. I'm just trying to find out what kind of a project would that be for the town?
Well, I'd have to sit down and run that number. I wouldn't be comfortable just floating a number out here. Off the top of my head, I'd say it'd be comparable. We just did a project out in on Newton Street before I started, so I'd have to look at those numbers, see what kind of numbers we got for the bidding, and then do the quantities, real back of the envelope kind of stuff before I said something here.
I understand. Okay, all right, thank you.
How many houses are actually on Wells on Parkerville? Is it both sides of Parkerville or just the west side? How many houses is there? On both sides in total?
If we can get the results of the two residences.
You're going to?
You need my name?
Sure. I know it, but
Bonnie Vanek, 179 Middle Road. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Condiff. We're very lucky to have him following through with this. I've had around 22, 23, and 24, I've read them all, and he's responded to every single one of them. The only question that's outstanding to me is the surface water, the former SW2 that's in the stream, bill, it was removed, and now there's one further downstream. Do you know why it was removed and moved further away on the Parkerville Road behind the homes?
I'd have to confirm that, Bonnie. I think I did check on that recently, and I believe they still collect a sample there, but I don't want to commit to that. I'll get you that information. I do know they do also collect downstream. I'm not entirely confident they removed that upstream sample.
Okay, because I believe originally the SW1 and SW2 were next to each other, which would be near the road to the new Trotter School. When it says approximate limit of the landfill, is that the cap?
We expect that's the cap, yes.
Okay, I think we need to, when we say it's capped and it's like an umbrella, I think we need to make it very clear that it's unlined. That's why these questions are coming up with the residents. I want to also say that I appreciate the hard work of the school committee and the school department and the superintendent's office along with Mr. Condiff. This hasn't been an easy journey. However, I have worked with probably 6 to 7 superintendents over the years, closing out schools, building schools, and whatever, along with a lot of other people in this room. It's very difficult with a new superintendent to come up with a new plan and the direction we're going to go in. So I don't think this needs to be who's in charge, who did what. I really think it's a process of moving forward and completing what we need to complete without looking back, because we had 7 superintendents, numerous board of selectmen, school committee members. The school department's responsible for their budget, for their capital plan. It goes before the advisory if they vote to put it there. So I urge everyone not to go back. I think we need to find a solution to this. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions? Roger?
Roger Challen, 29 Oak Hill Road. I'm also a member of the school committee, but my question isn't really related to that. Bill, I was at a select board meeting maybe a month ago or so, and you were describing a course of action that you were moving forward on related to testing, maybe new testing locations and things like that. And apparently since then, I guess someone made a phone call. At least that's what somebody mentioned possibly happened. You got this letter from the state. And you're still going forward with a certain course of action. So my question is the course of action you're moving forward on now significantly different than the one you were already on course before, and if there's some sort of significant differences that have come about because of this letter from the state, I just wonder if you could briefly summarize.
Sure. When I spoke last time, I was talking about groundwater gas monitoring probes. As I mentioned earlier, we are in the process of having a contract put out to install 4 to 6 probes, new probes. The gas monitoring data shows no exceedances of any thresholds that are established by the state. So that still is on track, unchanged by this new circumstance. The new circumstance requires us to do an additional round of sampling and a risk assessment, basically. So that's the additional portion that we're doing.
Well, I just add to that, Roger, one thing from my own perspective. What's the new request from this DEP letter is that they're requiring a risk assessment based on, first up, collect additional data and then send back to them a risk assessment. So that had not previously been requested before, although the exceedances, as Bill said, were pretty much very, very similar over the last 10 years. And that's in the works right now.
If I may, my question's along the same line. If the town has to have a no significant risk letter to the state, supply the information by who's ever doing the monitoring, that's only for that day and that information. I mean, you can't predict what's going to happen after you write the letter.
I don't understand your point, Bonnie.
My point is you're writing a letter to the state, to DEP, that there's no risk assessment. It's based on the information that you acquire at that time, not during the next round of groundwater testing. To me, it sounds like it's asking a lot of a town.
So can I jump in?
Yes, absolutely.
I wouldn't be surprised if, as a result of this, we do propose to collect the private water well samples as part of our normal sampling routine. So it may be an ongoing type evaluation. I think that might answer your question, Bonnie.
That, and are there any irrigation wells down there?
I believe there are.
Used for filling their swimming pools or gardens?
Not that I'm aware of. I know of the 2 primary residences that are immediately adjacent. Further up, there are some locations. I'm not aware intimately with the individual dwellings on irrigation systems.
Right. If there are no other questions or comments, thank you, Bill. I really appreciate your time and giving this very clear explanation to people of where things stand.
Thank you.
Okay, the next topic is an update on the scope for governance study. So this is part of the next steps following the defeat of Article, was it 10 at the special town meeting?
Sounds right.
Yeah, where we had asked for town meeting's blessing to put together a governance committee, and one of the residents suggested instead we have a more professionally commissioned survey. And so we started to look into that. You know, there's the potential of funding a study like this just based on the select board consulting article rather than going to town meeting for it. That's something that is TBD, but what Mark and Vanessa put together is a scope of services that could be used to start to get some bids and some more pricing on how much this would cost. And so hoping to just get feedback and comments if people had a chance to look at the scope of services. You know, it's pretty vague, but I don't have a problem with that. It's kind of soliciting people who are interested to give us their idea of how they would kind of structure this engagement. It calls for main things that the consultant would do are facilitate meetings, research, and help with drafting of, you know, warrant articles or other language for bylaws that would help make the town structure of the town government more efficient. So I guess the question for the board is, you know, do you want to change anything about the scope of services? How do people feel about proceeding to get some quotes based on this?
Didn't we get this from another town? And that was who? And that was who? Burlington? And do we know whether Burlington was satisfied with the result that they got from this?
So this is based on a document that was used in the town of Burlington. They're in the middle of their process right now, actually. The Collins Center is doing the project there in that community. So they, it took a little while for them. They did choose to set up a committee of residents. So they're in the midst of their process right now. That's why they don't have a final report that we could share.
So the committee is working with the Collins Center to
Correct.
do this?
Yeah.
I've always thought this was the right way to go, that it's just, it would be hard for a group of well-meaning people to do this without the appropriate background. So I think it's the right way to go. I'm not sure if Collins Center is the right group to do it. But I do think having the professional help of people who have the background experience, understand Massachusetts, especially towns our size, which I think is important, is crucial.
I did speak with the partner, a managing partner at Capital Strategic Solutions. They've done a number of community projects similar to this as well, in Natick, in Lynn, in Weston, Framingham, in the general area. So, you know, there's someone else that we would, you know, reach out to immediately, you know, if and when the board approves the scope of services.
All right.
The one question I have is whether we should include the line that says codifying its town meeting form of government, that maybe touching the third rail. And, you know, particularly given that this is a commission that originates with the executive as opposed to the legislature, maybe that's the only one I would consider dropping. Just
Because it says town meeting is what we're looking to improve.
yeah, I mean,
Supposed to be.
so there's a, last time I checked, there are really only 2.5 forms of town meeting. And
What's the half?
well, if you are less than 6,000 people, you don't have a choice. You have to have an open town meeting.
Okay.
So that's the half. And then if you are over 6,000, you can have either open or representative. Sometimes they get called different things.
So you don't think this should be considered at all?
No, I think how we organize the executive portion of government is long over, I think a review of that is long overdue. Whether we should hold the debate about whether we want to have open town meeting or representative town meeting.
I think that's fine to take out codifying its template. So they would just say, researching recommended efficiencies and incorporating best practices for town administration.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I took, for example, a quick look at towns our size and, and the split between, for example, a town administrator and town manager is just about even at, when you look at towns that are, you know, right in our bracket, population wise. So, you know, I think that's a fair thing to take a hard look at.
So one of the big things that this would try to solve is whether we would have a town manager or a town meeting.
Well, it would it would talk about the pros and cons in our town and give us something to debate. I think I agree with taking out the type of town meeting out, but it still would be a worthwhile thing to understand what people want, given how many people complain about town meeting, right? It's still something that probably should be looked at some point and let people have a choice, understand pros and cons of it. But I'm fine for now. I mean, we're biting off a whole lot here already, so I'm fine taking it out of this scope of services.
It is like, just in terms of clarifying for maybe people who would watch the meeting, what are the problems that this study and potential committee, what are the problems it's trying to solve? Town meeting being inaccessible for a lot of people, and cumbersome possibly. What are some of the other problems besides town meeting?
Well,
I don't think it's going to do that. It's going to look at the structure of what's under our bailiwick here, the inefficient structure that we've had for hundreds of years, and
okay,
try to make this run more efficiently.
Of the structure of the town meeting or just structure of like having a select?
No, the
board?
executive portion of
So
government.
this is
So
not town meeting at all.
there's two big sort of issues.
Yep.
The first one is, how are the things which are under the select board's control? So police, fire, DPW, rec, the whole list, you know, are we organized appropriately, and do we have, you know, are we organized appropriately?
We being the select board or we being the
The whole-
town
the
site?
Yeah,
town. Think
the
about
things
this
that,
building right
the
here.
things that are under our purview,
Right,
the departments and functions under our purview. And then the other one is the larger executive, because, you know, our form of government is highly balkanized. You know, we have an independent planning board, we have an independent board of assessors, we have an independent library, we have, if I missed any,
Elected town clerk.
Board of Health.
and then a board of health and a town clerk. And so there's not counting schools, there's, I think, 6 or 7 different elected executives, each with their own little bailiwick, each with their own set of silos. And, you know, we ought to ask, you know, is this a common thing? Is this, is there a better way to run the railroad? And, you know, I think at least taking a look at that structure.
okay, so,
Another way of, Margaret, if I can,
Yep.
so the annual report, town annual report, you flip it open, either page 2 or 3 is the organization chart for the town. And I think most of us get a chuckle.
I
when we
know,
read it,
it's like everything's
because
related
it
to
is so
everything.
complicated. So the idea would be someone who is an expert in this field,
Mhm.
to come in and just kind of give a dispassionate, objective view for a town of your size, from the things you're doing. Here are some things you consider, you know, instead of having
Okay,
14 different, you know, horizontal arrows going this way, maybe you just have 10 or 11, you know? And there's no question that some of their recommendations might be, you know, generate some controversy. Some people would like them, but, you know, I think another way we tried to put this at the last annual town meeting is every 15 years, you know, so we should do this exercise, right?
You know, I'm surprised at this point with all of the towns in this Commonwealth that there hasn't been an effort by the state to put together, quote unquote, a model town structure, you know, 10 to 20,000, 20 above, whatever. But I will say, if you look around other towns, and we did this on advisory a couple years ago, there's a lot of differences in other towns, between them and what we do. So there's definitely room to consider a restructuring to try to achieve efficiency. We're not out to try to do anything other than try to be more efficient.
Okay, so in
And-
other words, leave the town meeting as it is?
Yeah,
not-
because that's the legislative branch, so we're executive, deal with what is under our
Well,
control.
Framingham is representative town meeting, right? They-
Nope,
No,
it's the
there's
city.
city.
No, city council.
Are there any towns that have representative?
Yeah,
Oh,
Alice
yeah.
said, he looked, and he
Many,
said about
many
half
towns.
our size were and half weren't, so he says about 50.
They
So
tend
No,
to
no,
be
no,
bigger.
no, that's town manager. When you get
sorry.
to towns in the 20 to 30,000 range, that's about when it becomes much more common to have representative town meeting. I lived in Reading, and Reading had a representative town meeting. Amherst is a town, it has a representative town meeting. So larger towns tend to do that, that gives them a permanent legislature as opposed, and, for better and worse.
Okay, so that's good. I'm asking these sort of like devil's advocate type questions, because if I'm a resident watching this meeting,
Sure.
I'm saying, well, now what are they planning to do? And I'm saying, we're trying to look at the most efficient forms of government for our
Yeah.
size. Does that mean losing town meeting altogether?
Absolutely
No.
not.
No,
Absolutely not.
no.
No, we don't.
Uh,
We're leaving
Why
town
not?
meeting alone of this. We're literally trying to say,
Okay.
okay, do we need an EDC? Just to throw one out, the one that we've had trouble with. So do we need an EDC? Or if we do, is there a better structure for that department? So you roll up a lot of things in this one big department like a lot of towns
Yeah.
do. Some towns put, this one I'm going to get in trouble with, but they put youth and family services, senior center and health department in one department,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
So there's a lot of other towns that do things differently than we do. I don't think that, if you've seen Sam Stiver's org chart, it's even worse than what he's talking about there. So there's no doubt, we all agree there's room for improvement. This started a few years ago. Andrew and I were probably the only ones on select board when we had the guy who used to be a town manager come and lead our goal setting meeting. And he said, you guys have way too many committees and way too many
I
boards.
remember that report.
And so since then, we've been trying to, we haven't done, we haven't accomplished very much, but we at least kept that in mind as far as what he said to us. So we know that we're rather inefficient.
Yeah,
How much-
well, we are under intense financial pressure.
Right.
And, the taxpayers are speaking in ways they haven't spoken in the past, and with some justification, in my opinion. And so we really do need to figure out, how we can deliver the services of government in the most cost-effective way, and whether we are organized to do it that way.
Deliver the services that people want too. Also
Yes.
understand what they want, and then try to deliver them more
All
efficiently.
right, so the other part is, as I recall, that report which said we had too many committees was paid for by the state, correct?
No.
No.
Who
No,
paid for
we
that?
did. We hired a consultant, come to our meetings, select board set their goals. It was July of whatever. And no, this was something, select board used their budget to hire this consultant to come in. That's what he does for a living now.
Mhm.
And he basically lead us through the meeting. So he just kind of threw this out there as a aside. By the way, you've got too many committees.
We had like 30% more than we needed. So my question was, have those suggestions in that report been implemented?
There's not a,
No
there wasn't a
report. He just threw
report.
it out,
He just
Marguerite.
said
He
it?
just threw it out, yeah.
Oh,
All he did was help us align our goals and help us narrow down that year what goals we wanted to set. But he gave us this gratuitously. So
Yeah.
there was no report.
oh, okay, so this has never been done by the town?
If it has, it's so long ago,
I don't remember
it's
one.
more than 50.
Yeah, I don't recall it ever having been, the last time it was done was when we wrote the town administrator bylaw and expanded this board from 3 to 5,
Which was?
when that was
2011 or
15.
12.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was 15, I was the chair of that group, and I had a lot less gray hair at the time.
So, go ahead, Tim.
Do we have an estimated cost of what this is? Do we know what?
No, the idea is that this is the document that will help get us.
Well, I know that, but we also have this based upon another town that did it. So do we have an idea of what the other town spent in this process or is
Not right
spending?
now.
We don't, okay.
I think it could be wide ranging depending on who you picked.
So we need someone to analyze our.
Well, I mean, my only comment was, I mean, I know that we want to do this. I know it's a goal of ours. We have to be aware of what we could potentially save as part of this effort of getting this back. Like, we have to have a goal. Otherwise, we're spending money for the sake and hope that we're going to save money when we have a spending problem right now. So my only comment would be, is this the best time to do it? And if we do, as part of this, I'd like to just know for the next step, what could a potential savings look like to start this process? And I know that's part of it, but it's cart before the horse sort of thing. But we kind of need to know an expectation of what we're gonna get.
Well, that
Alright,
is
well,
the
just
cart
the-
before the
the-
horse. I don't see how you calculate that till you actually have a suggestion about what to do. Then you can look at it and then
We
try
would
and
have
figure
to
out-
look at historic information or whatever another town is doing and see how well it's worked for them. So, I don't want to wait, but at the same time, I kind of want to wait to know how it goes in Burlington and
Well, here's my suggestion. So there's zero cost in just
doing this.
circulate the scope of services.
Yep.
Ask a couple qualified organizations, what ideas, how much would you be willing, what would be your price to do this? And then just bringing that information back to the
Well,
board.
I think to get to Tim's point, what would it cost and what do you think the expected benefits are?
yeah, I mean.
Yeah, just, rather than just ask what the costs are, ask what, if we do this, what are the expected benefits?
Yep, I think that some of them may be more intangible than.
What quality of life for the residents? How's
Oh,
that?
I mean, they're, to that point, I would hope that they would put in there some kind of case study or something that they've done. So if they have a case study of another town, obviously they're professionals in some way, or we wouldn't be going to them. So
Mm.
as part of this, let's just ask for a case study or something as a proof.
That'll
point.
be included in
Yeah.
their response.
Yeah.
What projects for, similar communities
Yeah.
they've completed recently.
Okay.
If they got a reference, you can
Yeah.
call them up and find out, did
That-
this work
that would
out or
be
not?
enough. I'll just understand. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so it sounds like take out the,
Codifying. zone.
yeah, take out the language that Al pointed out to us in the first paragraph, and we'll just see what information we get back. And then, all right. So the next item is continued discussion of the March 2 special town meeting. And since our last meeting about this, where we had just bullet points of concepts for the articles, we have draft language, which reflects input from the schools. Although I'll say that this is a draft. You can see, some of the summary language is has some ellipses in it, things to complete, but I feel like we've made progress because we need to sign the warrant by February 13th, right? I think that's what Jim Hegarty said. So you think this is our last regular meeting in January. There's a regular meeting on February 3rd, and then we have that, basically February 3rd is the last regular meeting to finalize the warrant. So I feel like we've taken a step forward here. The main difference, I would say, between the bullets that we had, or two main differences are, one, we had a prior iteration which had 5 articles instead of 4 articles, in which the first article was asking town meeting to fund the 3 different options we had talked about. And then there were separate articles asking for individual approval for those. So just some feedback when people said, that sounds really complicated. Why don't you just have 3 separate articles for the 3 separate options? And again, the options are Article 1 is asking town meeting to appropriate $175,000 for a feasibility study for the renovation improvement for Neary. 2, $324,000 for the purpose of funding a 2-phased feasibility study and associated design, planning, architectural engineering work for renovation expansions to Trotter and Finn. And the summary explains that would be to accommodate grade 5 at Trotter and grade 2 at Finn. And 3 is $500,000 for the purposes of funding a feasibility study and associated design, et cetera, for a expansion of Finn School to make it a 4-grade school. And then 4 is the roof. That was what the, now the new concept, which is in Article 4, at the suggestion of the, from schools, is Article 4 in this draft has asking for an appropriation for the repair and replacement of the roof, which it sounds like there's a consensus for it, that needs to happen. And also for a feasibility study to evaluate additional capital repairs and improvements. And then the summary explains that would be evaluate building systems, asbestos abatement, fire suppression, electrical, HVAC, window replacement, and ADA compliance. You know, the purpose of each of these is to find out, do the necessary bid work so that you can take that next step to find out how much it would cost to do each of these things. This is not a debate about what project you want to do, about getting information to make an informed decision later about what project to do.
Say that again, Andrew. There's no bids involved.
Okay.
You're not
but
going to get to a bid here. You're going to get to
That's
a
what I'm
schematic
trying to say.
design with a
Just gonna
cost
tell us how
estimator.
much it will cost.
Yes,
So
you
you're
need to
far
spend,
from having a
you need to
bid
spend some money to find out how much these projects would cost,
to estimate how much these.
to
projects
estimate how much these
cost.
projects cost. So we're asking town meeting to help us estimate out these different projects. Is that fair to say?
Mhm.
And are the-
Why is that on 4? with the
4
roof?
makes no sense to me, but
Okay.
we're going to talk about it.
4 is minimal repair to Neary.
And then
a re-
Al had, we included in the packet, Al had drafted a Al proposal.
So, yeah, I drafted a version of the article that basically was
Which
part,
article?
this is, well, that, to be included, that would extend the life of Neary for 15 years for the reasons I've described before. And that we would identify these 6 items, which is a new or repaired roof, ADA compliance in the occupied spaces, removal or containment of asbestos in the occupied spaces, a fire suppression system, and maintenance and component replacement of HVAC systems, and pointing and repair of exterior brick and concrete. Specifically targeting to limited modifications that would avoid triggering the more extensive code upgrades. And I have suggested that we have a budgetary number that would be recommended to not exceed. And the reason why I chose, and I've since suggested that that number is $15 million. I chose that number because I think that's a number which is financially feasible and would be acceptable to the community. $15 million borrowed over 15 years at 3.9%, which is, I believe, is the appropriate rate today, maybe different tomorrow, would hit a $900,000 home to the tune of about $310 a year. So to keep Neary as an appropriate education institution for 15 years. 15 years hence, I believe, from all of the data I've seen, our school populations will likely to be no larger than they are today, and likely smaller given the low birth rates that the industrialized world is currently experiencing. So the other reason to put a financial not to exceed number in there is to, I was a project and a program manager for about a dozen years in the technology business. And feature creep is just a constant in any project. And so one of the tools for managing a feature creep is a budget. And I think that we need to be very careful. This is a program which, is not designed to turn Neary into a building that we're going to use for 15 or for 50 years.
Al, I have a question for you.
Sure.
If the, I don't know who's ringing, is that me? No, it's not, oh, it's my watch, sorry. $15 million, if that includes the roof, and the roof is about 5 million, that leaves $10 million for all the rest of it?
Yeah, that
So basically put $10 million into Neary.
yeah,
To
and
make it less.
I will also tell you that, I've met with the superintendent, I've met with the chair of the K-8 school committee. And I think that number needs some additional vetting. And, I'm also in the process of, and I've been working with Mr. Fling to determine what the exact sort of code thresholds are and, how to walk that tightrope, because it is a tightrope. We're going to go through the 30% thresholds for ADA compliance. We're going to go through, and for the fire suppression system, that's fine. We're going to be through that. And so the question is, we're not, the suggestion would be that we would not be moving walls. We would not be reconfiguring spaces, because those are things which we begin to then trigger additional code requirements. Again, this is still a work in process.
So that.
Okay, hold on, let him finish.
If I can add to that, it's not avoid code compliance. That's not what's happening here, or at least the conversation that Al and I are looking into. It's understanding the thresholds. So if you start touching all the windows, for example, they need to be energy efficient windows of today's standards when you replace them. That's like a standard window you buy today. That's not really a big deal. But if you start touching more of the envelope, you might have to replace or put insulation around all of the walls. So insulating a 60,000 square foot building up to today's R30 standards or whatever the exterior rating of the wall would be, that's where there's a huge cost. So it's not saying that you're not going to make fire suppression, ADA compliance. You're going to do all those things. You're going to make it safe. My kids are going to go into this, so I have a vested interest in how this building is too. But you're going to make sure that it's completely safe, up to current standards. But you may not replace the entire electrical system, because the electrical system still functions. You just can't necessarily add like a mini split to a classroom today. But if there's an HVAC problem, you'd fix the HVAC problem. So kind of understanding the differences between reconfiguring the space to today's standards for like a 50-year school, or understanding like what it could be safe and good for 15 more years of use that you would want your kids to go to. Because the building is not, the education there is not bad. The teachers are great. It's really just making the building, all the deferred maintenance caught back up.
Well, a lot of the Code Red report that was, I think, 2024, maybe in June, dealt explicit, Arrow Street had commissioned that report from Code Red, which I think is a capital building. And it had exactly which things would be triggered when what was done.
Yep. All the things that Code Red report covers would be done because they all relate to the safety and of this. So all the fire suppression system, the ADA compliance, all those pieces would be done. Everything that Code Red report covers would pretty much be the plan for this, because they're all necessary and needed.
Yeah,
And-
Tim and I met with Code Red, and they were very helpful.
I'm just wondering, can it-
So,
And
do it for
Can
10
someone else
million?
talk here a little bit?
Sure, go for it. So-
okay, so here's just an observation. I mean, one way of terming what you are talking about is a partial or limited renovation, just.
Deferred maintenance.
Okay, but let's be clear. If we want to put this on the article, have it an and article, number one, okay. It is very clear that what's in here is not going to cost $15 million. I can tell you that right now, based on all the numbers we had with the Neary Building Committee. But we had details and we had professional cost estimators. So using those numbers, you're going to be way over that. I'm happy to put 15 in here. It's one person's number. It's an arbitrary number. I don't think that's fair. I don't think one person should decide what's appropriate for a person to spend, but put it in there if that's what we want to do. But in the end, the idea that, again, one person has decided that in 15 years, the school population is going to go down, instead of relying on our professional demographers, who will tell you that going beyond 10 years is a fool's errand, because this is, you cannot predict it to that kind of degree of certainty that you can rely on. It just makes no sense. So we're going to end up with a project that is going to make a bet on the school population in 15 years. Then we get there, we've got more than we were supposed to, and then where are we? But I'm not going to argue anymore. If we want to add the "and" to Article 1, I will support it to come up with this number. I don't think the expertise to do what Tim described is on this select board. It needs to be done professionally as far as determining what that timeline should be, what codes are triggered, et cetera. I don't want to rely on people here that's not what they do for a living. It's got to be done professionally, but that's what we're going to do here. They can do that as part of this. Tell us what has to be done, tell us how it's triggered, what the cost is. So I see no reason to not do that, because I think they're going to be doing that anyway. This is just kind of another way to look at the cost of renovating Neary. But I'm going to say publicly again to allow one person to say, I like $15 million, just throw that in there because this is what I think the increase should be per house, just makes, I think it's unfair. It's not the way things should be done.
And here's my just observation. As you said, the folks who are doing the work to do a feasibility study for lack of a better term, full renovation, the work that they would be doing is so closely related to the work that what Al is talking about. It would seem that with one project, you could get information about both. Basically, a schematic design for a full renovation and a professional opinion about whether the project that Al is talking about can be done, or whether it trips a series of codes so that you just can't do it for that particular number, right? But I agree that us sitting here are not in a position to say whether it's doable or not doable, but you probably maybe I don't know how much more than 175,000, but I would think not that much more.
I wouldn't think so either.
So where I'm going with this is, I think that there's, we can't if we're going to go forward with the meeting on March 2nd, we can't have a presentation that's like the one like this, right?
I agree.
I feel like if there is at least some consensus from the board of saying, this is what we're asking town meeting to do, is just to take one step forward to gather information to present a couple different options for a next big meeting, which would then be a really big, important debate about, do you want to do project A or project B or project C, and you have real information about how much each costs, that I would be okay with taking the language that Al has in his, for lack of a better term, Al proposal, and just including it in Article 1 so that it is as part of the same appropriation, you would get the estimate for the full renovation, and you get information about whether this deferred maintenance / limited renovation, whether it can be done. And I think it wouldn't cost that much more money, and the benefit would be a more harmonious presentation at the.
I think the risk of doing that, though, Andrew, is as follows. And again, I'm going to support
Confusing
this. Well, so when we were working on the Neary Building Committee work, remember, I was on the finance subcommittee, so was Andrew Pfaff. So if you go back and look at the tapes of the meetings, you'll see where I, in particular, pushed the architects over and over, and I tried to get them a cap on the number because I knew the number was so high. I gave them a number, and they said it is truly not doable. We have to stop trying to design. So I think you're going to run into the same problem here. Whoever it looks like is going to say, you can't do all this for $15 million. So what do you want us to leave out at some point? But I'm still willing to support this, ask them to do that as kind of part B of doing this, to see what they come up with. And maybe I am totally wrong. Maybe this cost much less than $15 million. We can find out.
I would think the way that we would want to ask or put this in there would be like, what if we had, just using the number, what if we had around $15 million? Like, what could we do? What if we had more money? What could we do? This is our goals.
That'd be a better way to ask it.
That's the
We
way
got
that,
$15
that's
million,
literally
can
what
we
we're
do?
asking and what we're doing. It's just, what can we do for 15? Then we know what we can't do for, at that number. And then what can we do for more? And this is the educational vision that we want to get to. Very clear, concise, and then you just kind of give those sort of loose parameters of what if we had a number around this?
I'm good with that.
All right. What about the last?
And it's the same goal.
Having that as part of Article 1.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, but are you saying, Tim, tell us what we can do for 15, or still go ahead and put the cap in there with this list of things we want them to look at? And then when we talk to them, say, well, look, just go ahead and price them all out. Even if it goes over 15, tell us what it is. Or are you saying, if you know you're going over 15, we want you to then decide what's going to be in the 15?
we would put must-haves. We'd have to make this very clear. So whoever's on this committee would have to have this very clearly laid out as part of the next steps. We must have ADA compliance. We must have a new roof, a fire suppression system. We must have asbestos abatement or containment. We must have lead, whatever. These are must-haves. These are not debatable. So we must make sure the building can stand for the next 15 years. Those are must-haves. We would like to have this educational reconfiguration. We'd like to have the gym as one space. We'd like to maybe add on to the building. We'd like to do all these other things. So this is our goal. We know we might not be able to afford it. So how much is the must-haves? And if we want to do everything to get where we want to go, what does that cost? Those are the two things. You have a 40, 50-year plan. You have a 15-year plan. The town can then take those two pieces and decide what their appetite is. But we do not have an unsafe building when we're done. It's not unsafe today, but we have a building at the level that we want it to be at as a minimum standard for our students to be in.
So I still think you take the cap out and just say, these are the things that we have to have, the must-haves, as you say. So we want you to cost those out timing-wise, side by side of looking at the full renovation. But if the board wants to put the 15 in there, I'm
It's
not going to.
I wouldn't put it as a hard number. I'd say we'd have an appetite for or a target of. It would not be this is how much money we're going to spend. But it would at least give a parameter that if somebody's going through it and they go, oh, I could get you a triple pane window or I could get you a double pane window. They're going to pick the double pane if you have a budget to stick with it. It's just that conversation then.
Okay.
Can we talk about the structure of this? The 1, 2, 3, and 4?
Sure.
I don't like the fact that they're a la carte right now. I think that for us to be able to get through this, and I don't know where the numbers came from, but they conveniently add up to $999,000 to be right under the million. But I would like to see one of them with all of them in it, because for us to get through this, we need to get all the answers. We need to
That's
get.
what we started with.
I think we
was the
need to go
one big
back.
one.
Well-
We need to get answers for the town to get 2/3 majority on anything.
Yeah, but the theory is that if somebody doesn't like one of them, they vote against it, so you can't get your 2/3 because enough people don't like one of them, that they're gonna vote against it. So that was a theory to break them apart, so we at least knew we got a couple of them approved.
I think leaving them à la carte makes a lot of sense. And the reason is, yeah, we may well eliminate one. You know, this is a lot of money.
Yes,
Just
it
so,
is.
so,
Wouldn't be a bad thing if we,
No,
if.
I agree.
and, you know, if we
One of
take the
them.
money from free cash, that's certainly going to, not do us any favors in the budget. And if we take it from debt,
So it's $1 million.
it's not gonna do us any favors either. You know, I think, yeah, we could lump them all together and say, you know, do you want to spend $1 million on all this, or do you want to debate each on its own individual merits?
No,
I do
don't-
think if I can just, one point, Tim, is, does make sense to Articles 1, 2, and 3 to begin the meeting by asking that they be combined for purposes of discussion, right? So that there'd be a presentation and then questions from people about all of these, and some people could say, I think you should do all of them. Some people say, just do some of them. And then there's just a vote, a vote, a vote. And the value of that is town meeting spoken. You have a much clearer idea than we have right now about what do you want to do? What?
No, I mean, I understand the logic. I still disagree with it at this stage. I think that where we are with the amount of back and forth in the town, the opinions that we have, the people that may not want to do one of these, I think we need to get the answers so that way we can get their support later on when everything's side by side, apples to apples.
Well, Paul Sabelli said he would probably.
Semino.
Semino, sorry. Paul Semino said that he would probably break apart an article that contained all three into three separate ones for purposes of discussion. In other words, was it?
No, he'd bring it the other way around. But, so I think they should still be separate because I think it's easier to describe. The summaries, I think, are good in here. They explain things very well. So I think they still should be 1, 2, and 3. So that way we have more confidence that we're at least going to get one or more approved. As far as how to pay for those, you know, I don't see why we want to do free cash. It's going to hurt the budget, absolutely. But if we do debt, you're going to have a 2/3 threshold to get over, and you're going to have to amortize it quick anyway. You're not going to, it's going to be what, 2 years you amortize it?
Yeah,
You
it's,
can't go. You
I-
can't go long on this. It's gonna, the benefit's over with quickly. So I see no reason to do debt. Let's just, we can talk about it on Saturday further, but I
Al,
think
would
it should
you
be
be okay
free
with
cash.
losing the 15 million cap just for purposes of getting?
Pardon?
Would you be all right with just not including a 15 million cap on the partial reno?
We've agreed to do what you want to do as far as
but maybe
putting
we
it in there. I just think it's unrealistic number. And you're going to, then they're going to go, well, where are we supposed to live
Well,
out when we do this?
We don't have to make that decision tonight.
Okay.
I'm gonna do some more homework, okay? I agree with you, you know, that is a number that I based on what I think, you know, it was really a political number, you know. What do I think, if I stood on the floor at town meeting and advocated for this, do I think we could get this through easily? And I think it would go through.
Okay,
Do
I
think we
appreciate you
do-
trying to keep the impact down. We all want to do that. But if it's not a realistic number, what good does it do? So that's, so go back and look at.
I've said repeatedly, there's more work to be done, and I've said that to the superintendent, I've said that to the chair of the K-8 school committee, and I'm doing work every day on this.
All right, so,
One more thing, if I can.
sure, and then I just want to have one comment before we're going to ask for public comment.
What is, by having them separated, what is the opportunity to have two of them, like Article 2 and 3? They both look at Finn. They're going to be a huge amount of cost efficiencies. You're already looking at one of the buildings. So how do we deal with
Yes,
that?
okay. I'm not going to give you because I'm not 100% sure. I believe that because Article 2 and Article 3 would both involve site work at Finn, that if Article 2 passed, we might have a plan to know what that savings would be, so that, you know, the article just says a sum not to exceed. You could reduce that in a motion that.
I'm
you
not
made.
following.
Okay,
I understand their site work with both of them.
right.
More with one than the other.
if you were to do the studies called for by 2 and 3,
Yep.
there's an overlap in scope of the work. Site work for the Finn school, right? It's not exactly the same, but there's some overlap. So you might be able to reduce the total amount that you're asking for in Article 3 if Article 2 passes.
Yeah, what you would do is you would move the article, and then you would move to amend the total to some lesser number because Article 2 passed.
And
Correct.
Where did these numbers, are they real? Are they stand-ins?
Nope. I said $1 million to begin with, let me point that out, and it's 999,000. But this came from the people who know this project or know the school system the best. So we talked about Skanska, who was the LPM, and more importantly, talked to Errol Street to put these numbers together. So these are real numbers.
So why is Article 3 quite a bit more than Article 2 when Article 2 has 2 buildings to deal with and Article 3 has 1?
I can just tell you, this is what I think the people who know way more than I do had suggested for this, but again, I remember learning that there is some overlap in the scope of Article 2 and Article 3, so that if you did Article 2, you could probably reduce Article 3.
I just want to know why 2 buildings is not quite half, but like 2/3 of one school building. It just,
I think because they believe that the work at Trotter is really going to be extensive.
yeah, but that's the cheaper option. That's 324 with Trotter included. When you don't include Trotter, it goes to 500. So it just
Well, if
doesn't
you
make
remember,
sense.
that's adding like doubling the number of grades there, right?
You're adding 2 grades to it, which is not doubling. You're adding like a third to the school, but the
Yeah,
other
but
one
you
was.
got, you got a much bigger land problem if you do the 4th grade school than if you just add the grades. So I wasn't part of conversation with Errol Street. I talked to Skanska.
It was like
And he just gave me one big number.
it was like a 14,000 square foot addition versus a 7,000, if I remember the numbers correctly from the summer, or what we kind of estimated the addition to be. So it's more, but not.
Okay,
Crazy.
so
I-
we could sharpen our pencil, get some more information about the
Yeah.
numbers. And one,
It's
The
fine.
reality
It's
is we're
gonna
going to
go
put
out
all of
to
this
Okay,
out
let
to
me just-
bid.
yes.
out to bid,
So just,
absolutely.
okay. One piece of information is that by January 29th, schools will know more about the amount they're looking for the roof repair. And that, so that's good. We'll have that before our February 3rd meeting, because that may adjust what we're talking about a little bit here, all right? And I talked to the school's chair earlier today and just started to explain this idea of combining some of, what Al was looking for as part of Article 1. I don't know that, and they haven't had any chance to consider it yet. So I'm sure that they'll have a discussion about that, although I know that schools doesn't have a regularly scheduled meeting between now and February 3rd, but there's. Yeah. We're trying, I'm trying the best I can here too. Yep. Okay, but
And
so
then-
is there, yep, Tim?
Article 4, why is there an additional past the roof add-on to that one now? Where did that come from?
Feasibility study.
Okay, so that's what, part of it is if the roof triggered additional code requirements, but I also think part of it gets at the limited renovation idea, right? So that's why, if you're saying you don't think it belongs in there, I agree with you. We could move it up and make it part of Article 1, and I think that sounds like something that might have some consensus here, so that instead of that by February 3rd, we'd be closer to having the warrant in a position where at least this board feels like this is a good menu of options to price out at this special town meeting.
Can you clarify what you just said in terms of what would you add to 1, the feasibility study, or,
The feasibility study from Article 4.
okay, but leave. Article
Or you
4
could just
within
take
the roof.
Alice,
Stick Al's thing in there.
Yeah.
that's, yeah. Yeah, you
Um,
would make that.
I'm
Yeah.
confused too, and what you just said doesn't clarify it for me. What are we trying to do with Article 4?
Put Al's.
Article 4 would now just be the roof.
Yes,
Clean, no feasibility.
Yes.
study
No, no.
On the roof.
Yeah, it'd just be the roof because the feasibility study, for all intents and purposes now, goes
Within
in
Article
as
one.
the second half of Article 1.
And the roof cost should already include anything that, any triggers that it has, right? From my understanding, the roof insulation, R30 value, all that repair stuff is part of the quote that they're getting back.
Yes,
So anything that would have to happen as part of the roof replacement cost of that project should already be comprehensively included. And unless it's over 30% of the free and fair market value of that building, that's when the building inspector would weigh in and say, you guys have to meet this other thing, or we would ask for a variance against that. So that's how the roof should be on this. And if it's on Article 4, it'd be clean and clear for that.
I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah, we
Just
are. I'm
Clean
just-
on Article 4 roof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other thing to remember is that the warrant, strictly speaking, is an agenda. It is not uncommon for the actual item that gets read onto the floor of town meeting to be somewhat different. It's a common practice.
It is, but it totally confuses people too. They come in, they haven't seen the motion and they're reading. going,
Yeah,
"This is what it said here." So if we're going to do that, we should make sure those motions get distributed ahead of time.
Agreed. But, if something changes between the 13th,
We can
which is
fix
when
it.
we have to sign the warrant, and town meeting, as long as we sort of stay within the four corners of an individual article, we can make what I will describe as minor adjustments.
So Andrew, I agree with what Ms. Tinty said during her public comment that we've got to, school committee needs to weigh in on this. I know they're not meeting, but suggesting how you can weigh in on this before.
When can you come to the mic? Because then it's easier for her to record.
There's a Zoom meeting scheduled to talk about the budget. So if we needed to add an agenda item, and that's this month, okay, so if we needed to add an agenda item, I'm guessing we could certainly do that as long as we did that a couple of days. Tim, you know the date better than I do, I think, right? What is it? I'm not looking at my calendar.
What day of the month is it?
Well, I can look at my calendar. It's this month.
Okay.
So it'll be before you get to the 3rd.
Okay.
But I'm not sure what we'd be talking about yet. Because that's one of the questions that I would be having after you're finished
All right.
with your discussion tonight.
Well, let's,
Well, we could clean this up based on what we have.
look,
seen
Al has
agreement.
also started to put together this hybrid version of the Al proposal in Article 1, okay? And it looks pretty
Pretty
straightforward.
close.
You just take his proposal, and then Article 1 is asking for an expenditure to do two things, both of them.
Yeah.
One, schematic design for a full renovation. Two, the Al proposal. And because they're concerning, the same building, the same systems, it just probably would not cost that much more to have one professional to give you both
I don't
answers.
see why it costs hardly anything because you're going
Yeah,
to be
yeah, I
costing the
agree.
same things out a lot more, but I think it's a subset of the first one.
Yes.
So we have a meeting remote scheduled the 22nd at noon. And it includes
Wow.
budget review and some capital issues.
Okay.
So
You've missed your filing deadline, I believe.
They've already posted it, so the
Already
question.
Oh,
posted.
Can you
that's
amend?
true. yeah,
so we're not going to be able to add.
Yeah, you can add, okay, you're right. But yeah,
Okay, should we go to Kristen Laval, had her hand up?
Well, Mary's been there forever.
Oh, I haven't, okay. Mary, do you,
I'm happy to, Kristen can go first.
okay.
It'll all keep.
Yep.
Thank you, Mary. Andrew, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, Kristen Laval, 12 Southwood Drive. I would just like to formally ask we stop calling it the Al amendment or the Al article, because I think there's a lot more interest just beyond Al in pursuing this, and I hate to do that. But I think my track history in town shows I'm not one that doesn't want to invest in the future and in our kids, but I do think we need what this to me is coming from the corporate world is the MVP, the minimum viable product. I agree, $15 million. I totally agree with Mary with your sentiment. We can't throw numbers around, but I understand the sentiment of saying, hey, this is kind of where our tolerance level is right now as a town, all things considered. That just gives the consultant some frame of reference, but they might come back and say, look, you're MVP. Like the least amount you can get away with doing right now is 20 million or whatever it may be. So I just don't want it to be framed as if this is just one, select board member to Tim was part of that as well, pushing it forward. I think unfortunately it's not just because of the demographics, because again, I agree, who knows with that data, although it is a data point. But again, and I hate to keep bringing this up, but like we need to take a pause and consider that things are changing quickly in our world. And my favorite quote this week was, I'm sorry if I seem anxious, but I've been paying attention. And that's kind of how I feel right now. It's like, we may not be part of NATO tomorrow. Like crazy. I can't even believe I'm saying this out loud. But right now, our economy definitely has a obviously huge question mark on it. So I hope and pray that we don't end up, wherever we may end up before town meeting is in a more positive place. But we need to know our most conservative options. So rather than calling it the OWL article, call it the MVP, call it the most conservative. But the town needs to understand what that option is because we're facing kind of extraordinary times. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mary?
Yeah, I'll piggyback on Kristen and I want to thank you all for the conversation that you had because I think Mary Tinty, 2 General Henry Knox Road. Sorry. So I want to thank you all for the conversation you had because I think it got to some critical consensus even among the 5 of you. I want to point out just for all of you, I think as a select board, you are strongest when you are using professional data. Al and Tim, I appreciate everything you bring to the table. I do not want to hear code statistics from you. I do not want the 2 of you sort of putting forward what you think the town can handle in terms of which codes can be violated or upheld or not, or updated or not. Now, I just feel like a larger, and I think you're in agreement about this too. So like, I much prefer hearing from you. And I think you speak from a place of strength when you talk about what are our must-haves? What is that list? Versus putting a political cap on it. Because I know that's a fine line. And I know, I like what Kristen is saying right here about like the MVP, but when you attach a number to that, I'm just gonna reiterate that, when you attach an arbitrary number to that, because that's the number that you think potentially is the one that is gonna be most palatable, it really is, it is undercutting the data that we might have in front of us about what those costs really are and how to prioritize those to make the school as updated and safe as it needs to be. I'm not saying it needs all the bells and whistles. We've never been saying that, but those must-haves need to be fully valued and they need to be addressed and invested in to the cost that they are going to present. And I think when you keep throwing out numbers that do not equate to that value set, you are confusing the issue from now until the time that we vote. I understand you're going to sharpen that pencil. I understand those numbers are morphing, but people don't dial into the conversation every meeting. They hit it sporadically. And if they hit this and then come to town meeting, that's a problem because that number is going to change. And I hope I'm wrong about that. I hope we can do all of our must-haves for a really low number. I don't think that's the reality. And so I think we need to be really careful.
So just to respond, I agree with a lot you said, but to put it this way, right? Kristen said she wants to hear kind of the MVP proposal. If that's what you want, then you would vote for this Article 1 we're talking about.
Yeah.
If you wanted what you're probably, I think, more supportive of, you take the way that this process has been done before, you work up a design of what's the best possible project we could build there, and then you maybe pare it down a little bit before it goes out to a town meeting vote, then you would also vote for Article 1. Because,
Exactly.
okay, good. So there's a positive way that this could be,
I just see Article 1 as what it costs. Like, let's do a feasibility study on what it costs to renovate Neary. And then within that, at a later date, once we get that back, we then get to figure out, stop me if I'm wrong, we then get to figure out how much of that we think we can afford. Is that true?
Yeah, if you remember how the cost estimators work, they literally go line by line. It's like a 50-page report.
Yeah.
Every little component of the building is in there with a number. So you could take that
could take
final
your
report and
must-haves.
add them up. The components that you think are important. So that's why I think it's almost redundant what we're asking here, because I think you get it. That's why I don't think
Yeah,
there's any more money
exactly.
for this, and because
so if it's
all gonna be
redundant,
there.
if it's redundant, then what is the harm in just adding the MVP proposal language about that into Article 1, where the same professional working on the same building would get you both pieces of information, right? I can't articulate it.
No, you just
Is-
said it. It's
right.
fine. I think it's, but
I just think you need to not have a dollar amount attached to it as a cap. That's it.
I don't disagree with you, but I think that I could still incorporate what Al is talking about into Article 1 to keep moving this forward.
If I just have one question. I'm totally confused what we're going to vote on anyway. What's Finn? You said something about a Finn article?
What did you say?
Finn
I'm
school.
sorry, Finn school? What are we asking for Finn school?
And
Or
additional-
grade school, so K-3 at Fenn.
Pre-K through three
Pre-K through 3 at Fenn.
All right.
and pre-K through 2. There's two
Has
options.
anybody approached the state to see if you could expand that footprint into Mooney Field before you spend that money? It's
That's
under
going-
97.
That's going to be part of this, Bonnie, is that investigation as to what it would take, timing wise, et cetera, to be able to use the protected
No,
land.
but have we asked?
I have asked town council on other towns that have succeeded with an Article 97 change, and he sent me back literature and a bunch of towns that have succeeded in this and what they had to do, how much land they had to give up and stuff like that.
But it
So
requires a town meeting. Vote, right?
it goes to the state legislator for a vote. I don't know the full process of our local town meeting for what we have to ask for, but it has to go to a state legislator. They meet once a year, as I understand it, in the summertime. And then that's when it has to get voted on from the state level. So we
Right.
have like once a year to do it.
No, I worked on the Finn School project. I also owned the home that the town bought at that time. But not knowing that piece, and if it requires a town meeting vote to proceed, you've wasted money. And we did use some of that property for the Finn School. We've moved things around. I don't see the harm in getting a legal opinion, what the steps are and how to proceed, because you're going to be spending money that if it requires a town meeting, it fails when you spend the money.
Yeah, I mean, I can ask town council that specific question. I just
I
have,
think it needs to be in writing so the citizens know that we're looking at 97 property that might change the footprint and the need for that property and what the process is.
Okay, is there any other public comment?
It's important what she just said, because chapter 97, there's others have weighed in, we ought to do that separately and not necessarily ask architects to do that piece of it.
Yes, Roger.
Roger Challen. Two things. If we had to, I don't know this for sure, but since we won't even know the cost of the roof until what, the 29th?
Yeah, yeah.
The meeting we have set up for Thursday is really still looking at the budget, the school budget, operational budget. So if you want us to, well, if you want to add something, I guess I'd talk to Chelsea tomorrow, or I can talk to her, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure what you want us to talk about yet in this meeting. I'm also not clear where you've ended up on Article 1.
Okay. So where I was trying to get a sense of folks is if we took the suggestion that Al had made, the text of which is at the back of the packet, and basically included it in Article 1 so that you would be asking for a study that would do two things, both things. Feasibility study for a quote full renovation and a feasibility study for the, for lack of a better term, limited
The
renovation.
minimum viable product.
Okay, sure. Are people comfortable with that? Where we may strongly disagree about whether one approach is right or the other, but understanding that all we're doing is asking town meeting to spend the money so that we could find out, one, how much the first option would cost, and then second, whether that's actually feasible.
I think that's.
Well, we're throwing words around here again, like Article 1, I don't think you need much of a feasibility study. It is feasible. You just need to do a schematic and have it estimated. 2 and 3, you do need to do feasibilities because they involve other things that are not just costing out things there. But I'm fine putting the and in here in this article because I think the second part of the and is already going to be answered with the first part. You just pick the components and add them up as far as the trying to stretch it out and do the minimum to have the building last for 15 years.
So Kathy, isn't that slightly, even if you had the line items, you could pick out 3 or 4 things you wanted, but you'd also have to factor in whether they'd trigger a code.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're going to have to pick out the things that Al's listed, right? He's listed things that he believes have to be done to allow Neary to last for 15 more years as a viable, safe school. These are the items that he's picked. I don't know if he's right. I don't know if he's wrong as far as what he's picked out. Certainly you need a new roof. We know that. Certain things are obvious. So I don't know if he's got the list right or not, but they're going to be part of the overall renovation also. So it's just, to me, it's a smaller subset.
Well, it sounds like Kathy is okay with it. I'm okay with it. And Al is okay with it. And are you saying you're okay with it? Okay, there's 4. No peer pressure, Tim.
I mean, I'm okay with it. I've been debating the wording back and forth, like I said it earlier, is about like, if I understand the option that was studied before, walls were moved and there was like footprint changes, there might have been an addition to the building as part of a previous discussion of the numbers that was looked at. It's really like fundamentally saying, what if we had this, what if we could make this old school new again to a current educational vision? What if we just took this building and said, let's make this without changing the footprint? There's really like, those are the 2 ways that I see it.
I
So
think we're talking about the same thing. It's
I think
just
we're saying the
working
same thing,
on
of just using like
language.
different words on how I'm.
So one of the things which is a source of confusion is that what the idea that we is new and that we're talking about now, there's nothing in paper that concretely reflects it. So that's the next thing that we could do to make this more concrete. Yes?
Mary Tinty, 2 General Henry Knox Road. As you're talking about this, I just want to point out one little thing. Tim, you mentioned earlier something about the gym. I cannot underscore enough how unusable that gym is for larger town functions. I have a daughter who plays basketball. There are a lot of kids. Basketball is really popular in town. We are maybe sometimes able to use that gym for a practice, but we certainly can't play games there. And have you been in the gym? I'm not sure how recently you've been in there, but when you are standing in that gym on that basketball court, there is no room for any observer around the side if you are just playing a regular game at gym. And no regulation game is possible there at all because you can't even inbound the ball. So when we talk about must-haves and all that other stuff, I just want to underscore that the gym really should also be looked at because it's really bad. Okay, thanks.
So does that, you're saying you couldn't have a sense of where people are on this article? Do you have a little bit of a better sense?
No, I heard everyone say, I'm okay with it. Can you describe it just briefly? I mean, is it basically
Yeah.
all these things in this thing that Al put together somehow or other, integrated into the language?
So
that's
Roger,
in
it's
that
two parts.
article?
That article is a compound article. So the first one is a complete renovation of Neary,
Okay.
right?
The
Second
second
part
one
is
is-
to do a more limited renovation that is
Got
going
it.
to allow the school to last for 15 years.
All right, I wouldn't use this language verbatim. There's at least one typo in here, et cetera. And I'm not sure when you say suppression system, what that means. What does fire suppression system mean? Al, you put it in.
Rather than specifying a
Does it-
solution, you
does it mean
specify a
sprinklers?
function.
Does it mean sprinklers or not? Fire suppression?
I,
system? Just
I,
curious.
I am assuming that that would be the thing, but
So that's a
wait,
that's a
I'm sorry.
reversal of what you had identified a couple meetings ago where you said sprinklers provide no safety to people, right?
Well,
More or less? So-
you know,
so-
I've been wrong before.
Okay, all right, I'm just
Well,
wanna-
and the reality is that in order to get this to pass, I'm a politician. To get this to pass, this is one of the things you got to do. So
have safety.
I threw in the towel on this one.
One of the things you got to do is have safety for the people in the building
I-
as a politician.
Yeah,
All
yeah, yeah, so, but
Excellent.
the reason why I wrote the word fire suppression system is because when you do these sorts of things, you specify the function, not the solution. A sprinkler system is a solution. Fire suppression is the function.
I'm just curious, did you tour Neary? I know you had asked me once.
It's been a while since I've been in there.
So you have toured Neary, you did take the tour?
I didn't take one of the formal tours, no.
Okay, all right.
Okay, well, let's,
Yeah,
you know.
it's been
okay,
years since I've been in Erie.
All right, let's just have the last, Kelly Conklin's got her hand, let's have this last comment and then we will, I think, move on.
Hi, everyone. Kelly Conklin, 17
For your
Sadie Hut.
patience.
No problem. I just wanted to echo something that Mary had said about just the idea of what we consider our must-haves. And I just want to ask the committee to consider who gets to decide what our must-haves are. Is it the select board? Is it the school district? And what is the basis for that decision?
Well, it should be the town.
Yeah.
However we figure that out. And, you know, I'm with Mary. How can we not? We don't have enough basketball courts in this town. These kids they rent at Fay, they rent at St. Mark's, they go to other towns to rent. So I think that gym should be renovated. I also think the kitchen should be renovated. The idea that we don't have a functioning kitchen, that we have to get
So
the
then you
roof
would,
down.
then I think you would support Article 1 because Article 1
I've
would
always
get you that
said, Andrew,
information.
I'm always
And then if
said.
you have this more limited,
Right,
you
but I
should
tell you what
support
does have to stay in there. I really wish the cap would come out, but I do, you know, you've got to put the 15 years in there because you've got to give the architects, this is what we want you to do. We want you to tell us what has to be done for the school to be a functioning, safe school for 15 years. So that has to be in there because, you know, 15, 30, 40, a lot different as far as what the answer is.
so between now and the next meeting, we'll have language about this concept we talked about tonight. There'll be word back about the roof, right?
Mhm.
And we'll try to get this finalized on the 3rd, even if we're not 100% successful. I know I know you don't want me to say this, but
So-
we had
I think
we had
we're
a regular
close.
meeting on 3 weeks in a row. We have a break next week, right? There would be an opportunity if we really needed to, February 10th.
We're close.
We're
Andrew,
close, we're close, good.
And just to answer the question of the last caller, you know, if you think something is a must-have that is not on the list, there's a very simple process for adding it on the floor of town meeting. You make an amendment. You know, nobody said democracy isn't easy, but but it is eminently doable if you really feel passionately about it.
Okay, I think we've reached a point where there's like a natural end of the discussion. So I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?